DC here. Hi guys and gals. Hey, hope you're well. It is Sunday afternoon. It's not very cold. It's just a little bit windy, and it gives this impression of coldness. Of course, if you were in other parts of the world, you'd say, well, it's not cold at all. But you get used to where you are. So when it's cooler, you feel it nevertheless. Yeah. So I'm taking a little bit of a walk this afternoon. This morning was a pretty standard Sunday morning. I got up, I did my devotions, did some Spanish lessons, and then went off to church at 9. Went alone because Mrs. DC she's feeling better, but she is still tired, so she stayed at home. And I think I'm pretty happy. I think she is getting better, but man, it's taking a long time, isn't it? This is longer than when we had, that thing in the pandemic. Yeah, although the effects were very similar, coughing your guts out and stuff like that. Yeah, I just finished listening to a children's podcast, which I quite enjoy. It's called Paws and Tales. It's it's a story. It's anthropomorphic in that respect. Is that like there's Papa Chuck, who's a grizzly bear, but he's very much. I like to think of him as a kind of a really nice grandpa type of person, and so on. And there's different animals and so on, but they basically, like I say, it's anthropomorphic because it just. If you didn't know that they were animals, and since it's a podcast, you don't see them. But anyway, so it was fun. Yeah, but there was something in the podcast where the kids were talking about earning money by picking up finding bottles and so on. And I was thinking that's something that when I was a kid. We would, not only us, but I mean, there would be people that would almost make an employment, and I'm barely joking, of going around towns, countrysides, and so on, and picking up bottles. I have chatted about this before, but I was thinking, at the time, what was it? I think, because all the bottles were glass at the time. So at the time, a small. A small bottle, I think, was 2 cents. We're talking about Canada now. And a larger one, was it 5? I think it was. We only had 2 sizes of bottles anyway, and then. And there weren't plastic bottles. That just came later on. So, yeah, I think it was 2 and 5 cents. So, depending on what it was, if you found a bottle, it was a lot of money eventually, especially for a kid. When I was in grade school, we had a little store that was not very far from the school, very strategically well placed. And it was a kind of a convenience store, but it had a counter of candies. And those of you who were brought up in Canada, I don't remember if they had these in the States, but they had Mojos, and Mojos were, let me see now, they were two for a penny. Yeah. And so being 2 for a penny was very interesting because, believe it or not, at the time, we used pennies. Pennies were handy. They were a good thing to have. And that meant that actually with a penny, you could get some candy. But of course, in my I was going to say young boy's mind, one of the advantages, of course, of having a penny and something that was 2 for a penny meant that if you only wanted 1, it was half a penny. So in my, like I say, young boy's logic, a half penny didn't exist. So it had to be free. You'd have to give it to me, wouldn't you? So I remember asking the man, I don't remember his name now, but it was a couple, and asking him and saying, well, I just like 1 Mojo. And he said, well, we don't just sell 1, Well, I said, well, I guess you can't, because if it's half a penny, that means it's doesn't cost a thing, and so on. And he laughed and he says, doesn't work that way. And of course, I'm trying to remember, did he give me one? No, he didn't. I don't think he gave anything in that respect, but he kind of laughed and so on. What we did have, though, and if you remember, those of you who are my age probably would remember, it might have been a Canadian, maybe an American thing as well, but in Canada, we used to have licorice pipes. So they were this black licorice shaped into the shape of a pipe. At the end, it seems to me they were kind of reddish, like that would have been the embers on the pipe. And so we would love those. I don't remember what they cost now. They weren't that expensive, but the last time I read, I don't know if any of you have read Louise Penny's stories, but it's about Inspector Gamache, and all the storyline is in the Eastern Township, so the part of the world where I was brought up in. And at one point or another, this comes up every now and then, like that somebody has licorice pipes. So I guess they might still have them, or maybe it's just out of nostalgia that they bring it up. But yeah, it got me to thinking about things like that, when we were kids. And of course, there was bazooka gum. Any of you remember bazooka gum? Because bazooka gum, I think was it Joe Bazooka? It was wrapped, and there was a little cartoon strip, like in the wrapper, and then there was a second wrapper. And the bazooka gum, well, actually, it was really big if you had it in your mouth. But we used to like the little cartoons and so on. Yeah, candies as a kid were different, weren't they? But, we did have penny candy. Yeah, the world has changed, hasn't it? I'm thinking like now I'm adult, I'm living in Switzerland. I don't know. I'm trying to think. There was maybe at one point that there was the possibility of bringing bottles back, but you had to have a deposit. There was a period where you could get certain, I think it was apple juice and stuff like that, and you had to pay a deposit though for the bottles. So yeah, you brought them back to get your own money back. But if you know the Swiss, nobody threw those bottles out, so they kept them. You would be very, very lucky if you walked along and found a bottle here. Yeah, I mean, those are really things that go back. Like I say, I go back to my childhood, and I see a man, maybe more than one, but I do see this man that used to walk around, and he had a bag, and he would go around the countryside and different places, and he would basically just pick up the bottles. And I remember my dad telling me that this guy made, well, a bit of pocket money. I mean, he certainly didn't earn a living, but he made his pocket money with the bottles that he picked up. But of course, he had to walk a lot to get it. Yeah. Life is different, isn't it? Yeah. I see a kid playing over there, and I think he's maybe playing with a dog. I'm not quite certain. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my Sunday reminiscing for today. I hope that you have a good Sunday. That's what Sundays are for, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're, I was going to say, a church-going person or not. It's kind of nice to have a day of rest, where you can actually take some time for yourself. And yeah, like right now, I'm walking and reminiscing, and it's really quite nice. Very enjoyable. Yeah, well, that'll be it. So it'll be DC signing off. Take care, everybody, and I hope you're well. And talk to you soon. Bye-bye.